the turnaround and the better part of the season. But after winning yet another game, Inter Miami is once again within touching distance of a playoff spot. Hello everybody and welcome to the latest episode of Miami Total Football Radio, aka Miami Total Football Radio. I am half of your co-hosting team of this podcast, the number one podcast on Inter Miami, providing you all the latest news, analysis, opinions, and more. My name is Franco Panizo, and joining me once again is Jose Armando. Jose, I hope your loan turns into a permanent deal because you've been around for quite a bit and doing a very good job. So how was the rest of your weekend, brother? How was your Sunday? I know you had some Dolphins coverage to do. Did you have any papayons? Was there any time for some papayons in the meantime as well?
Hi, Franco. Thanks for having me again. Well, the Dolphins were playing on the road, so initially, I have to be honest, I woke up thinking the game was at 1 p.m. So when I checked the schedule and as I was getting ready to work the game, I noticed that it was at 4 p.m. So, I didn't like that a lot, but it's okay. They got the win in the end, so I'm glad. You know, it's a lot easier to work with our home teams when they win because everybody's happy and everybody wants to talk. Press conference and everything are so much different. But it was a good Sunday, a lot of fun. Now getting ready for Inter Miami tomorrow night.
Yeah, and you did have to work that game, so I'm going to take by your omission of a response that you did not have some discounted papayons yesterday.
No, I didn't. I didn't have Papa John's. Let me see what I had for lunch yesterday. I don't even remember what I had for lunch. I had some Mexican food.
Okay, yeah. Well, my family, they definitely gave me a ring and a buzz, and they were like, "Hey, can you order the Papa John's for us online because they're not as technologically savvy?" So I had to help my parents with that, and they did enjoy some discounted Papa Youngs, as we say because of the Miami accent. Of course, this show is not actually brought to you by Papa John's. I know people might think that because we bring it up from time to time, but it's actually not yet anyway. So if anyone from Papa John's is listening and wants to make that happen, give us a shout. But Jose, on a more serious note, Inter Miami won yet again this past weekend. 1-0 win versus the Columbus Crew. We're going to touch on that game in this week's pod. We're also going to preview the game against Toronto FC that happens on Tuesday night this week. A very strange bit of scheduling there. A rare Tuesday night game for Inter Miami and a rare Tuesday night game in MLS. So we have a lot to talk about in a short amount of time. We're going to try to keep this pod condensed because it is a very quick turnaround from one game to the next. We don't have that extra day, so let's try to keep it short, but let's try to keep it thorough as well and as analytical and with the quality that we always bring. So, Jose, let's get to it. All right, Jose, I still haven't come up with a nickname for you, but I'm going to by the next time you're on this podcast, I promise. As for this weekend's game, Inter Miami, as I mentioned before, picked up a 1-0 win versus the Columbus Crew. A third straight clean sheet for the South Florida side, which has now lost only once in the last 10 games. And it leapfrogged the reigning MLS Cup champions Crew into ninth place in the Eastern Conference and is now 2 points away from a playoff spot. So finally, it can see the playoff line. It's right there. It's a game away. Could be reached as soon as this week. But this was the starting lineup for Inter Miami. In this one, Nick Marsman in goal. Lewis Morgan as the right wing back. Your three center backs from right to left were Leandro Gonzalez Pires, Nicolas Figal, and Christian McCoon. Your left wing back was Breck Shea. Your midfield consisted of Gregory and Blaise Matuidi. And up top were Rodolfo Pizarro and Robbie Robinson on the right and left wings respectively. And up top was Gonzalo Iguain, who got the game-winning goal in the first half. Jose, what were your thoughts or your biggest takeaway from this one?
Well, I think we're going to sound very repetitive, but, the reality is that right now, defensively, the team is performing well. And again, they had a good performance over the weekend. And again, I'll go to that because, that's what's working for this team right now. Although as we move on in the podcast, I'm gonna talk about my concern with this team defensively as we move forward because as we know they're playing tomorrow and they're playing again on Friday. But defensively they did a good job again. They limited Columbus Crew especially in the first half. I think the second half for Columbus with Yassi now in the game and, a couple of adjustments that were made by Caleb Porter, they were able to put a little bit of more pressure defensively on Inter Miami. But in the end, I think defensively, again, another good performance for Phil Neville and for his team.
My biggest takeaway is that at this point it's clear that Phil Neville has righted the ship, that he has turned this around from where it was at the end of July when Inter Miami lost 5-0 to the New England Revolution, and it looked like, well, it was rock bottom for this team. They were on a consecutive game losing streak. That was the biggest loss the team has ever had in its short history. We talked about his job security at that point, whether he deserved to go or whether he would go because of his relationship with David Beckham. They stuck by him. He changed the makeup of the team with the formation that we've seen now, and it's gotten them results. It hasn't been the prettiest soccer. Let's be honest, it has been pretty ugly in a lot of games, but it's effective, and it's gotten Inter Miami to the point now where they're in the picture for the playoff spot. They're right there now within touching distance. So Phil Neville deserves a lot of credit for the turnaround he's done. Obviously, still some places to improve, but very remarkable for Inter Miami that they've been able to turn this around with, by and large, the same team. Obviously, there's some new pieces in there. Nick Marsman, Kieran Gibbs, Indiana Vassilev, but by and large, it's the same exact team, and Phil Neville deserves credit for that, just as he deserved criticism during the first couple of months of the season when things were pretty poor, and we were talking about the lack of results and performances.
Yeah, I happen to agree with you, and it's hard sometimes to criticize a team that for Inter Miami fans, they know the struggle from the get go, from trying to get the team hit down here. And then you start thinking about those days when you had no soccer at all here. Now you have professional soccer, but it's part of the job as well to criticize. And now that they're doing things well, that they getting the good results, it's time to acknowledge the work that Phil has been able to do with this team. I think, from what I hear from every single player, I think the most important thing for this team right now is the collective effort, and then that's on the coaching staff. That's on the coaching staff. For the players to understand that they have to work together to win games. That's on Phil and his coaching staff. So a lot of credit to them.
Let's listen to this quote from Phil Neville on that very topic, and then we'll change gears to diving into the X and O's, of the game. Let's listen to this from Phil Neville.
And that was the most important thing. Without each other, if you're not going to run for each other, if you're not going to cover for each other, if you're not going to give the ball and trust each other, if you're not going to push each other in training, if you're just going to come into training, do your job and go home, then go and be an electrician. At football, you need to be a team. And we focus really hard on that.
Jose, listening to Phil there, again, it's the team mantra, the team now playing as a collective, as a unified group, and everyone being much more bought in than they were at the start of the season. It's pretty impressive to me because they've pretty much practically flipped a switch with, by and large, the same squad, something that did not seem possible. Again, after that 5-0 defeat to the New England Revolution, I thought anywhere else in the world, I'm still of the belief that I think anywhere else in the world, or almost anywhere else in the world, Phil Neville probably would have gotten let go, but he was given more time to work on his project, work what his processes were, and he got to turn this team around. Do you chalk it up just to the team spirit, or are there other things at play here as well? Because I think, there were some tough decisions he also made, like taking the captain's armband away from that rotating band of four. I think also the formation has also helped out a great bit. I think his familiarity with maybe the team and the strengths of certain players and certain partnerships, I think that's helped in a big way. But do you attribute it just to team mentality, or do you attribute it to other factors as well?
Well, there's team mentality, but I think, bringing players like Marsman, I think especially, Kieran Gibbs, because as soon as Gibbs started playing for Inter Miami, it seemed like everybody started to believe in the formation because he was so good coming from the left, attacking constantly, but working on the defensive side of the field as well. So he was the player that showed me that formation could actually work. And because, as you know, in MLS, teams are not necessarily defensive minded. And so I thought, well, playing with three in the back, at times it looked like it was five. It's going to be a challenge because usually teams in MLS hired good forwards, players that are good in the attacking part. And so I had my thoughts about that. But as soon as I saw Kieran Gibbs, I thought, well, maybe there's a chance for this to work, as well as Indiana's will coming on the right side, switching sides. It's about bringing players in, bringing the right player, not necessarily the player that is going to sell out the stadium in tickets or break records in jerseys sold during the season, but the player that is going to contribute and the player that you actually need for the system that you have in place. So I think team mentality comes first, and then bringing the right players at the right time.
Well, let's jump into the X's and O of this game. Let's start with Gonzalo Iguain, because he scored the game winner in the 16th minute, pouncing on an errant, ill-advised back pass from Crew center back Josh Williams, and then he races forward there in the final third. Gonzalo Iguain does, and chips the ball over Eloy Room. A bit of a soft chip, didn't get enough of it to see the ball go in over the goal line cleanly. It's almost cleared off the line, or it was attempted to get cleared off the line, but it finds the back of the net all the same, and Inter Miami takes a 1-0 lead fairly early, and that was enough in this one. They hold onto the lead for the 3 points, so a victory for Inter Miami, which is now unbeaten in their last 5 and has won 4 of those last 5. After the game, Gonzalo Iguain touched on the motivation that he has from seeing his family at the stadium, because obviously his goal celebration, it was a bit curious at first. He did a lot of different gestures. We from the press box didn't know what they meant, but I had a feeling that it was about something about for his family, because he ran over to the same section of the stadium, which looks to be a VIP suite where apparently his family was, or where his family was. He admitted that after the game, or said that after the game. He was also making gestures towards them before the game. I saw him, I don't know if it was blowing a kiss, but he definitely signaled towards that same area that he ran over to and pointed to after his goal when the two teams came out onto the field before the national anthem. So you could see that he is in a much better place, not only physically, because he's also running a lot more on the field than maybe we saw at the beginning of the season, but he's also in a better place mentally. So I think that's notable. I mean, he even said that after the game, that having his family around and being able to hug them is something that gives him a little extra strength to give a little more. So what do you think about Gonzalo Higuain's latest performance and his admission after the game that having his family around has helped bring him peace of mind?
Well, when it comes to family, I think especially here in South Florida, we can all relate to that, right? Because most of us come from someplace else, and we have family outside of the States. And so I think we can relate, right? Having family when they come over on vacation or to visit, it's a special moment. And for a football player as well, it's the same. And they have a great platform, and I'm sure Gonzalo enjoys his family. And he did mention this right after what happened with his mother. It's important for him to have that relationship nearby, and so I can understand that. And I think he's performing at a higher level. I think just a few weeks ago we were talking about it, and it's going to be a challenge for him because with the team relying so much on the defensive side, there are going to be games in which he's not going to get the ball a lot, and that's the reality of this team right now. And so he's going to have to be patient and just understand how this team is built right now. And, I don't think you can change much. And if it's working, I don't think Phil will like to change anything at all. So he's performing at a higher level. There's no doubt about that. And hopefully he can continue that. Although, remember, it's going to be very important for him to be at top shape because, as we get closer to the end of the regular season, he's going to be needed more and more. He's the key player. He's the designated player for this team that everybody expect goals from.
Now, he did have some interesting remarks during his post-game press conference, and we'll touch on that at the end of this segment because I do think they are worth talking about in a little more detail. But I agree with you that he is in a better place, and that Inter Miami is reaping the benefits of that. He's reaping the benefits of that. We know what happened to his late mother. That obviously impacted him. He said as much during the course of the season. But now having his wife and his daughter in market and having them attend games and being able to see them while he's running around on the field or while, he's maybe a little bit gassed, maybe that does inspire him to push a little harder or push a little more. Obviously, you could see how much the goal meant to him and the ability to be able to celebrate with his family right there in front of him, something he touched on as well after the game in a whole lot of detail. He even said that was something he's dreamt about most of his life. So a notable moment there for Gonzalo Iguain, and one that should only serve to push him forward through the final stretch of this season. Let's touch on the collective showing a little bit here, Jose. Inter Miami defensively was very good again. The attack was not, because the only goal comes off of that poor back pass from Josh Williams that Gonzalo Iguain pounces on and finishes opportunistically there in that first half. Besides that, Inter Miami only had one more shot on target, didn't create a whole lot. Yet again, it got the job done, but the attack still leaves something to be desired. What do you think about the defensive performance? And then what do you think about the attacking performance?
Well, the defensive performance was good and was more like what we have seen in the last few weeks. Now, offensively, I did expect a little bit more this game, just because you're playing at home, and especially when the team had possession. I think they were not very creative offensively. As a matter of fact, the goal comes out of a mistake from the opponent, and I think it comes down to two things. Lewis Morgan is not involved offensively. I mean, don't get it wrong, because he's doing everything that this team needs. But for some reason, he's just not able to be that player that moves forward consistency with the ball. And he's unable to, at least during the weekend, he wasn't able to connect with the midfielders, which, you don't have a lot of options when you're playing with three in the back. But still, there was no connection there, and that's the one thing for me. And on the other side, Break Shea as well. I don't see him as a player that is going to build out of the back. It's hard for him to play at the same tempo for his teammates, especially offensively. And so I think that's where it was troubling, especially in the first half and when they had possession. Now, in the second half, it's a completely different story, because Phil Neville thought about closing things out, especially in the last 20 to 25 minutes. If you see the substitutions in the game, basically Inter Miami ended the game in a 5-4-1 formation, so very defensive minded. It was just about keeping the score the same, not allowing Columbus to tie the game, which almost happened, by the way, at the end. And if that was the case, we probably have a different conversation right now. But that was the idea from Phil, and it's on Phil, right? If the offensive performance in the last 20 minutes wasn't great at all from Inter Miami, it was basically because they didn't have the personnel on the field to perform at a high level offensively.
So I think I would disagree in terms of the overall attacking performance, because I think what it came down to, because we know what the formation is by and large, and I know you touched on Lewis Morgan, and I agree there to an extent, but not fully. But I think what happened here in this game, from my analysis and my rewatching the game, was that the Columbus Crew won the possession battle. They won it 58-42, if I'm not mistaken. I'm trying to think off the top of my head here. I think that's the Columbus Crew being good with the ball. And I think that's also Inter Miami scoring early, because with them scoring early, naturally, the other team's going to start pushing more numbers forward to try to find an equalizer. They're going to take more chances, more risks, and the team that has the lead is going to maybe just naturally also defend a little bit more, maybe drop their lines a bit and try to stay tight to protect that lead, especially Inter Miami, given how it focuses on being solid defensively. So I think the early goal, combined with just the Crew being good in terms of moving the ball around in the center of the park, I think both of those things combined for Inter Miami to not have a lot of the ball, and then when they did have the ball, weren't able to really click and find each other, especially in the final third. Now, defensively, an exceptional showing once again. I never got the sensation, I don't know about you, but I never got the feeling during the run of play, all right, Inter Miami's at risk of losing this lead. Obviously, it's a 1-0 game. anything can happen, and Columbus could have an opportunity, a penalty kick, a handball. The game was always within reach for them, but I never got the feeling that the Columbus Crew were going to pull this level. They were never overwhelming Inter Miami, despite having a lot of the ball. They never really created all that much danger in the final third to make you think, all right, Inter Miami's defense is bound to let one in. So another solid performance for the defense for me. Nick Marsman and Gregory were both named to the MLS Team of the Week earlier today on Monday when we're recording this podcast. I thought they both had good games. I thought Gregory was really, really good. I thought the three center backs were also very, very good. None of them three made the MLS Team of the Week, but a good defensive showing. The attack, again, not the best day for them. They started okay with looking for Robbie Robinson with runs in behind on the left, but once the Columbus Crew adjusted to that, he had no more ideas for how to attack, and Inter Miami lost their ideas for how to attack. I thought Gonzalo Iguain was pretty sharp in terms of a lot of his passing and dribbling and a lot of his touches, but he dropped back quite a bit and was pretty much not a target up top anymore. He was just more of a playmaker in this one. So a lot of things to address there for Phil Neville. What do you think's the biggest thing he has to address going forward?
Well, I don't like. I'm going to tell you something that I don't like about this team, and Pipita mentioned it, and it happened this weekend against Columbus. Inter Miami cannot become that team that scores and forgets about the offensive side, right? If you're going to score at this level, and you're going to be up by one goal, that doesn't mean that you're going to win the game, and you cannot rely every single day on your defensive side because they will make mistakes at times. Everything looks great right now, but it's going to come the time in which Makuni's late or Figal is not good with the ball coming out of the back, which he usually is, but he's going to make that mistake, or Leandro Gonzalez Pires misses an assignment. That will happen. So whenever that happens, you don't want to be the team that usually thinks that they can flip the switch anytime they need a goal, because that's not what Inter Miami is. So I did not like that the team was exclusively concentrating on defending and not attacking at all. Listen, at times in the second half, they had a formation in which they had at the top Robert Robinson and Pipita Higuain, and yet they had a lot of trouble getting the ball. So if you're going to change the formation and you're going to put Pizarro behind him, you have to help him out a little bit. If you're going to have two at the top, you either have to choose whether you want to risk it and go for the second goal or you want to defend. And at times I thought they were a little bit undecided on what they wanted to do. So I don't want Inter Miami to become that team that usually scores and then forgets about attacking. I think that's not a good combination, and that is not going to go well. And especially if they're able to make it to the playoffs, oh boy, that doesn't work there.
Yeah, I think the recipe, like you say, is not necessarily the greatest one, because the formula is not the greatest one, because you're not always going to get an ill-advised back pass to pounce on like they did in this one, or you're not always going to get a great last-minute goal like they got against FC Cincinnati the week before, which, hey, that was a great goal. Golazo, we said that last week on the podcast, but it came at the very end, and that was their only shot on target. Again, in this one against the Columbus Crew, only 2 shots on target. And then if you go back, now we're going back 3 games, the 0-0 draw against Orlando City, not a whole lot in that one either for Inter Miami. So the attack needs to improve, because I don't think this is sustainable. I don't think grinding out 1-0 wins or 0-0 draws is going to be sustainable unless the attack improves, because they need more. They need more than what they've showed lately. It's inevitable that other teams are going to find cracks in the defense, or the ball's just going to end up bouncing not in your favor at some point. So I do think they need to adjust the attack and find solutions for that attack. And the last thing I want to touch on here on this game is that one solution that needs to be found, or that needs to be addressed, is Gonzalo Iguain and Rodolfo Pizarro's understanding and their partnership, because they're 2 designated players, And they have only, as I wrote today on Miami Total Futbol, they have only directly contributed to one goal between themselves. And that was the Gonzalo Iguain pass to Rodolfo Pizarro for the first goal in the Toronto FC victory last month. So the victory against Toronto FC last month. So besides that, this entire season, they have not directly combined for a goal. And that's normally not what you would expect from a number 10 and a number 9. I know Pizarro's playing on the wing now. He's not the creative attacking midfielder that he was earlier in the season, or not used in that type of role. But I think there needs to be a way for them to get on the same page. Because if you look at this game, or if you read that piece, or even look at some tweets that I put out today with some images, there are different moments in the game, particularly in the second half, where they both occupy similar spaces. And this is not the first time that they've done something like this, but it was, again, very notable in this game because they essentially marked themselves. They essentially covered themselves because they were just so close to each other. Now, why that happens is because Gonzalo Iguain, who's playing the number 9 position, the striker position, he drops back into a pseudo 10 role. He's kind of just a makeshift number 10. He looks to pick up the ball or get on the ball, and so he drops deep. Pizarro, who's playing out on the wing, on the right wing, he likes to drift inwards to help also find the ball and likes to combine. And he's also given that freedom, that tactical freedom from Phil Neville. So he also drifts inside from his outside position to try and find the ball. But they both end up occupying a lot of the similar positions at similar times, and that again is rendering them as a bystander. They're just not taking part in the game because you can't pass the ball to both of them if they're both standing in the same exact spot on the same exact sequence. So, I mean, or you can, but only one of them can get to it. So that has to be corrected, in my opinion. I don't know how you go about that because to me it's starting to look pretty clear that they maybe just don't fit together as a partnership, as a duo. Las asociaciones, como se dice en español, as we say in Spanish, that one doesn't seem to be really clicking. I think it can improve, but I don't know how much it can improve.
Well, actually, I think that's a good thing. I wouldn't change that. I would encourage that from this team. I have been telling you, Franco, from the get-go that for this team to be successful, Rodo Pizarro and Pipita Higuain, they don't have to be best friends off the field, but when they are on the field, they have to connect as much as possible. So I would rather have them play side by side than Pipita on one side of the field and Rodo on the complete opposite. I think that's a good thing. Let them go at it. Let them make mistakes. Let them fight a little bit on the field and off the field. I don't care. Something will come up from them playing together close by. I think that's exactly what Miami needs offensively. That will open up space for the wingers, whether it's Lewis Morgan or Robbie Robinson. Listen, those are the two players for Inter Miami. If they have good games together, Miami will have good performances offensively. And that's the one thing they're missing right now. So hopefully they don't listen to you at all. And they can continue to play together side by side, hand by hand if you want. I don't care. Just have them play together and pass the ball between each other. Build some chemistry.
I am rubbing my hands here together and smiling because now we get to actually have a little bit more of a debate here. And I've been looking to debate with you because we tend to agree quite a bit. But no, I don't agree with that at all. I don't agree that having them both occupy similar positions and be so close to each other that benefits them. Because if you look at the numbers at this game, I'm an eye test guy, but if you look at the numbers after the fact, Rodolfo Pizarro had the second fewest touches in the game after Robbie Robinson in this one. Now, you can attribute that to Inter Miami not being very good in the attack and not having a lot of the possession. That's fine. But he also just doesn't get the ball a lot because Gonzalo Iguain drops into similar areas and is the one picking up the ball. There was one play, clearly, and again, you can see this on my Twitter handle, at Franco Panizo. There's one play in the second half. I think it's in the 72nd minute. Inter Miami's entering the final third, and the ball gets played from the left side back to Blaise Matuidi, and Matuidi looks up to find who he's going to pass it to, and he has literally 2 yards away from each other are Gonzalo Iguain and Rodolfo Pizarro in a central area. And what he does is pass it to Gonzalo Iguain, and Gonzalo Iguain just takes it and Pizarro kind of just has to defer, and he takes a step back, but it's awkward because he has to move out of the way as Higuain's trying to dribble forward. And their spacing is not good, and that's because they keep going into the same exact areas, or they keep occupying a lot of the similar areas. And again, it's not the only time that that's happened in this game or in this season. Pizarro earlier in the year talked about how they were trying to work on things. It's part of the reason why Pizarro has gone from being a number 10, being used centrally, to now being used out wide on the wing. It's because they occupy too many similar areas. And Higuain said after the game, another notable quote he had in this one was that he said he prefers playing as a number 9, that he likes being the striker, but he's by and large not fed the ball there, so he gets bored. That was his word. He gets bored. So he has to drop back to try to find the ball, get his touches in the game, and try to get involved in the build-up. He said he'd prefer to just be a number 9, but that his teammates don't find him and don't play him through on goal often enough, or as often enough as he would like.
That's what I'm talking about. That's exactly what I'm talking about. He's taking 2 spots right now. He only needs to take one as a 9. Let Pizarro take the other one. Let him take the other one.
But he's not. But that's what I'm saying. But again, so I agree with you that Higuain should not be playing those 2 spots. That should be one or the other. But he's doing so because he's not getting the ball, and no one's finding him and hitting those passes in behind. Now, I also have my questions as to how much speed Higuain has to really be testing defenses with runs in behind, but Pizarro doesn't do that either. Pizarro doesn't hit those balls. He's not the only one. You could look at Gregory, you could look at Blaise Matuidi. Players in advanced positions don't hit those balls to Higuain, so that leads him to drop back. But Pizarro doesn't do it either. Pizarro doesn't do that.
When the chemistry is there, all that you're mentioning right now, it just flows. Everything goes with the flow, Pizarro gets the ball in the middle, and he already knows where Pipita likes the ball, so he'll get it there. And that's the one thing you have with Pizarro, he's a 10. So, obviously Inter Miami, they're not using him as a 10 for most of the game, at least. At times, they let him go back to that position. He's very good with the ball. So if he's able to develop a chemistry with Pipita Higuain, Pipita will forget about coming back and trying to get touches. He'll just score goals, which is what he wants. And so, obviously, if you look at 1 or 2 plays from the game against Columbus or 2 or 3 weeks ago, you're going to find flaws because, the chemistry is not there yet. So I wouldn't tell you,
Jose, we're 22 games into the season for Inter Miami. If the chemistry's not there 22 games into the season, I don't know if it's going to get there, because how much more time do you need to get the chemistry right between 2 of your designated players?
Well, 2 things. First, Rodo Pizarro and Pipita Higuain have been injured for a while. Second, they play positions that haven't allowed them to combine each other as much as they should. And understanding that the team is doing well right now, I'm not going to ask Phil to change things up so that Pipita and Rodo can become best friends. I'm not going to ask that from him because...
But they don't have to be best friends. I'm not saying be best friends, but they need to be able to, like you said, have that chemistry on the field and connect and combine. They're the 2 attacking designated players. Their understanding is vital to push this team to another level. We just talked about how the attack is leaving something to be desired, how the attack, this model of winning games by tight margins and on opportunistic finishing, is not sustainable. One way to resolve that would be to have your DPs find the same page and get on the same page and find one another and connect and combine, but they don't do that because they like to occupy similar areas, or because they just don't. I don't think that they fit together. I don't think that their skill sets fit together, or Phil Neville's not finding the way to get them to play off one another in the best way, because it just isn't working. And I think the stats show that. Again, just to go back to how I started this topic, was 1 goal between them directly. 1 goal that they've directly played to one another in all of this season. Yes, Higuain's missed games because he was on a training regimen, and he also missed games because of personal matters throughout the season. Pizarro was injured as well at different points, but they've had still a plenty of games together, and it just hasn't worked. And it's not like this is their first season together. They played together last year, and Pizarro also coincidentally had a big dip in form once Gonzalo Iguain arrived. So I don't know if it's going to work. I don't know if it's gonna fit or work. But trying to find a solution to that, or at least trying to find a way to improve that, to me, that partnership is key to finding the next level for Inter Miami this season. If they can unlock that, Inter Miami can become a very good team, because you know this. In MLS, a proven formula is having your number 9 and number 10 be very impactful, very influential, especially when they can find each other. Look at Raul Ruiz with Nicolas Lodeiro and the Seattle Sounders in years past. You can go back to the Columbus Crew even last year. Giassi Zardes up top with Lucas Elarrayan playing and operating behind him. There's plenty of examples of that throughout the league over the last 10 years. So if Inter Miami can unlock that, if Phil Neville can unlock that, then Inter Miami will take another step up. If they don't, then the attack will continue to be limited, and that's going to put a cap on, in my opinion, a cap on the ceiling that Inter Miami can hit in 2021 with this team.
Yeah, hopefully we get an opportunity to see them play together this year. I agree that, they should be able to at least play at a higher level together by this time because of the experience they have had together. But for some reason, the chemistry is not there. So it's up to Phil to find a way to build that chemistry. Although it's going to be really tough for them to connect if Rodo is playing in the wing and Pipita is coming back looking for touches so often during the game. That's going to be a challenge. But like I said, I'm not going to ask Phil to change the formation right now when it's working. Now, listen.
Oh, absolutely. Don't say I don't want anyone to think I'm saying change the formation. If it's not broke, don't fix it. But I do think that their partnership could be better.
And the other thing is that, we're essentially facing the same scenario right now during the last few weeks, which is Inter Miami gets an advantage, does well defensively, ends up with 3 points. That's not going to happen every single game. It could happen tomorrow that Inter Miami is down early against a team that you're supposed to win, and then you're going to have to find a way to attack. Well, maybe that's the moment for Pizarro to go back to being a 10 and Pipita to be a little bit more concentrated on staying inside the box or near the box so that you can take advantage of your opportunities. So things can change. Hopefully we get to see a little bit different scenario offensively from this team, not because it's needed necessarily, but because, Phil, I'm sure in the back of his head is thinking, well, this is not going to work for the rest of the year. At some point, we're going to have to score.
Look, I'll leave it with this. This was a quote from Rodolfo Pizarro on August 18th after he scored the game winner against the Chicago Fire off a pass from Victor Ulloa. He was asked about his relationship with Victor Ulloa. And this is what he said. I'm translating it into English, but he said this, quote, "I think Victor is one of the players that I most get along with and best understand. I think that with both of us being Mexican, we understand one another well, both on and off the field. I think we are players that try to pass to one another the most and that know what the other is going to do the most." End quote. I have never heard him say anything of the like about Gonzalo Iguain. And again, I don't think that there's personal beef in there. I don't think that there's any personal issue there. I just don't think that they get each other on the field, that they understand each other off the field, that they can play off of one another's strengths. I think that the chemistry is just not there. It's pretty non-existent for them, and that I think the proof is in the pudding with the stats, with the performances. We'll see how they do. Because I didn't think Inter Miami was going to turn this around, so maybe they'll prove me wrong again, and we'll see Gonzalo Iguain and Rodolfo Pizarro combine for many goals during these final 12 games of the MLS season.
I would agree with you. That, the relationship between those two is not what we wanted it to be. But I think that's not a good example because I just asked a few hours ago in the press conference, Pipita Higuain, about everything that went on with Robbie Robinson in Chile. And he said he did not talk to Robbie at all about the situation that he went on. And that usually when something like that happens and you care about a teammate, you go and at least ask what's going on. Do you need anything? Do you want me to talk about it? So on the field, it looks like the relationship between Pipita and Robbie Robinson is really good. So based on that answer that he gave me, I'm not going to tell you that the relationship between those two players is not good at all. So I'm just saying, maybe not a good example. The
No.
relationship could be a little
What?
bit better.
I disagree with that too, because we've seen Gonzalo Iguain feed we've seen Gonzalo Iguain feed Robbie Robinson 4 goals this season. We've seen them connect and create things. We don't see that with Pizarro and Gonzalo Iguain. And I could go on and on, because there's another play in that second half where Pizarro has the ball and Iguain tries to make a run in behind, and he doesn't get the pass because Pizarro just stands on the ball and makes a safe pass, and Iguain throws his arms up in the air. There's numerous examples of them just not looking like they are on the same page. But we'll leave it there, because we've gone on quite a bit about it. Let's see how the duo does this week and in the games to come. Maybe in a few more pods, we'll come back and say Jose was right, or we'll say, hey, Franco, you were right. We'll see how it goes. But let's take a quick break. We'll come back after that and take a preview look at the upcoming game against Toronto FC.
The players are just beginning to smell something is happening. And, sometimes you want to play things down. Sometimes you want to just keep your feet on the floor, which we will do. But we've got tremendous momentum. And what I've said to the players now is that we go to Toronto with the same kind of attitude, with the same kind of determination. And this is a big week for Inter Miami Football Club.
Okay, Jose, that last segment got pretty spicy. I liked it. Good little debate there. So now let's try to switch gears, though, and look at Tuesday night's game against Toronto FC, the worst team in MLS, giving up a whopping 48 goals, I believe it is. I'm going again off the top of my head. Should have the stats in front of me, but I don't right now. What do you expect from Inter Miami in this one? Phil Neville said he might make some changes. He's going to play a fresh team. I imagine we'll see some different personnel out there. But what do you expect from this one for Inter Miami?
Well, I think, we have to go back to what we were talking about, Cincinnati, the game before Cincinnati on that podcast. And I mentioned that, that was a must win for Inter Miami. So I think we're back in the same spot. I think they have to win. It doesn't really matter where you play Toronto. You just have to win against them, because everybody has been able to do so, and you don't want to leave points in the table. So, and especially right now when you need them, because if Inter Miami is able to win that game, you're talking about a playoff spot basically. So, not secure, but being within the reach for a playoff spot. So I think it is a must win. The one thing that makes me think about this game and brings me a little bit of doubt, it's the fact that they just played on Saturday. They traveled today. It's a quick turnaround. And so we like the system so far from Inter Miami the last few weeks. But if you take a look at it, you'll find that basically there are only a few changes in the lineup, and they come because of injury. Now Phil is forced to make changes because they will be flying back on Wednesday and then playing on Friday again. So that's the one thing that makes me worried a little bit about this game tomorrow. But still, when it comes to the standings, you have to win this game. You're supposed to be a better team. You carry a good momentum right now. The momentum is on your side. So I would hope, Inter Miami wins this game. Maybe not like they did in Cincinnati. They can be a little bit more convincing with their style and scoring more goals. But if it's a 1-0 again in the 90th minute, that's all Inter Miami needs.
So for me, I expect Inter Miami to win this game. I expect it to be, look, I'm not going to say it's going to be an easy game, but given the competition, and I'll correct myself, it's actually 49 goals that Toronto FC has given up this season. All the same, still the highest total surrendered in 2021 in Major League Soccer. But it's clearly not going to be the toughest test that Inter Miami has had. Now, it's a short turnaround. They have to travel. Those are things to take into consideration. But I still think Inter Miami should be able to get the job done here. I think they should be able to get the job done. Toronto FC is in a bad way. They are hurting right now. Their starting strikers, their main options up top are injured. Alejandro Pozuelo's injured. Yes, Jefferson Soteldo, the Venezuelan international, as he showed in the home game here last month, he can hurt you. He's got talent on the ball. but I expect Inter Miami to be able to win this one, even with some changes in the personnel, because again, Toronto is just in that bad of shape. So for me, it's definitely a very winnable game, and anything less than a win would be disappointing. I don't know if it's a must win, but anything less than a win would be a disappointing result. Jose, for you, what's the key to the game for Inter Miami? What do they have to do in this one to come away with the 3 points?
I think they just have to be effective in front of goal. Sometimes when you're facing a team that you're supposed to be, beat, the one thing that gets in your way is the mental side of the game, right? If you go into the game thinking, "Oh my God, I have to score 3 to 4 goals in this team. I have to win this game no matter what," you can put a little bit of pressure on yourselves, and then if the goal if for some reason they're playing a good game defensively, you already mentioned the numbers, but they are allowed to have at least one good game in the regular season defensively. And if that happens to be against Inter Miami, you want to take advantage of your opportunities. You don't want to let them to believe that they can actually win this game. And so for that, you have to take advantage of your opportunities. And if they come early, even better. You have to score early just to let them know that you're going to dictate the tempo in this game and you're going to take the 3 points home. So that would be key for me.
I would say just being more aggressive against a team that's practically out of the race. They're in last place, in 14th place in the Eastern Conference, and they have 15 points through 23 games. So their season is practically done. Maybe not mathematically, but practically it's all but over. Take a little more risks, show a little more sharpness in that final third, and find some goals. The last time they played together, Inter Miami came out with its first multi-goal win in franchise history, and Inter Miami looked by and large the better team in that one. It's probably been one of the most convincing victories Inter Miami has had in 2021. The goal that they gave up was an own goal from Kieran Gibbs, so never were really that troubled. Inter Miami, just I think if they can be more aggressive and be a little bit more attack-minded, I think that they will take care of business in this one. That's the key to the game for me in this one. Just be more attack-minded, and then obviously be a little bit sharper there in the final third. Jose, do you have any idea, or do you want to take any guess as to what changes we could see from Phil Neville on a quick turnaround with another game happening on another quick turnaround on Friday? Do you want to venture to guess, or do you just want to say that we should expect some changes? Because this is going to be pretty tough to predict.
Yeah, it's going to be tough to predict. I'm going to give you some names that I think will get an opportunity. I think Juli Carranza will start. I think you have to give a breather to at least one of the center backs, and probably you can only give a breather to one of them, because I don't know if you have enough to two of them out. So that will leave Kevin Leardom starting. I think Indiana might get an opportunity, but I don't know if Phil wants to shake things in a drastic way. I'll say Victor Ulloa as well can start in the middle. Victor is basically a starter, honestly, because any time that Blaise hasn't been available or Gregory, Victor steps up and he actually plays like a starter. He plays at a good level. I like him a lot. And so I think those are the names that come to mind, and they will probably get an opportunity. And obviously, Phil will not, or anybody in the coaching staff will never tell you that they actually want to leave, the core of their starting group for Friday, because of course on Friday they will be facing a different team than what they will be facing tomorrow. But I think tomorrow is the time for Juli Carranza to get an opportunity, and those names that I mentioned, that would be my guess.
I agree with you. I think Julian Carranza gets a start for Gonzalo Iguain. I think he gets a rest against the worst team in the Eastern Conference. He could come off the bench. Higuain can if he's needed, but I think that they throw in Julian Carranza up top. I do agree with you that Kelvin Leardam can start in this one, or will probably start in this one. I think he'll come in, I would say, for Leandro Gonzalez Pires, just because Leandro Gonzalez Pires is the oldest of the three center backs. He also tends to get forward a little bit more and expend a little bit more energy. At least that's what I would guess or surmise from watching the games, where Nicolas Figal kind of plays that modern sweeper role. So he's not necessarily moving or covering a whole lot of ground. And Christian McCoon also kind of just is very positionally and tactically sound. So I think Kelvin Leerdam for Leandro Gonzalez Pires. I agree with you that Indiana Vassilev or Victor Ulloa and Indiana Vassilev are options that I think could see the field. Maybe we see Ulloa for Blaise Matuidi. I would say maybe Indiana Vassilev could come on for Pizarro, but I think Pizarro gets another start. That's just what I think. So my prediction would be that you'll see 3 changes, and that'll be Kelvin Leerdam for Leandro Gonzalez Pires. You'll see Victor Ulloa for Blaise Matuidi, and you'll see Julian Carranza up top for Gonzalo Iguain. Those are my predictions for the 3 changes Phil Neville will make to the starting group. Also noting that Indiana Vassilev could come in on that right side for Rodolfo Pizarro. Jose, quickly, what do you think about this weekend's game? Give me a prediction. Does Inter Miami continue this fine run of form and maybe jump over the red line, jump over the playoff line at long last, or will it be a disappointing result for the team?
Well, you failed to mention that the last time we predicted a score, I predicted a win for Inter Miami against Columbus, and you predicted, what did you predict? You want to say it, or you want me to tell everybody else?
Did I predict a draw? Did I predict a loss? I honestly don't remember.
Yeah, you did. So yeah, you remember.
Which one? A draw or a loss? Which one did I predict?
A draw.
You
said a draw.
Okay.
So, okay, I'll give myself credit for that one. I think they'll win tomorrow.
Some nice shameless patting of the back by Jose Armando.
Right. Yeah. I think they'll win tomorrow, and it's going to be 1-0 again, but it's not going to be dramatic. They will score early, and yeah, they're gonna hold on to the result. 1-0 is more than enough.
Another 1-0 victory for the team, huh? I say Inter Miami wins, but I think it'll be a 2-1 victory for the South Florida side. We'll see how it goes. We'll see how Inter Miami deals with the turnaround and the personnel changes. Definitely things to keep an eye on there. Also, let's take a quick break. We'll come back for a very quick Q&A session and our final thoughts after this. Okay, Jose, I know you're pressed on time, but I'm keeping you around for the Q&A session this week. So let's quickly jump into the Q&A session. We'll just keep it short. We'll just do a couple of questions here. First one comes from Don Cafecito. Makoun is improving, still young and consistently performing well on the pitch lately. Do you think the Venezuelan national team will call him soon? We are thin at center back, so I hope they haven't noticed him. Jose, do you want to start or do you want me to start?
Yeah, I can start.
Okay.
Well, first off, it's great when players go to the national team. I don't know, for some reason, so many people think that's a bad thing for players to leave for 2 or 3 games at the most. That it's great. It is great for players, for Inter Miami players, to go and compete at the international level, because when they come back, they are better players, and you want to have good players on your team. So that's the first thing. Second, I don't think he's ready yet. I think Phil has mentioned quite a few times that the system right now is working in favor for Makoun. I think he can get better, especially if you play 4 in the back. He will probably be the odd man out. So, it's going to take time. He's only 21 years old. He's having a good time right now, enjoying playing with his teammates. So he's a good player, but I think the national team, that's going to come later for him.
I think the concern, first to address that, I think the concern that some fans have is that not having them around will impact not having them for games, which in MLS is true because MLS plays through international windows by and large. So not having them for games means that you're thinner, you're weaker as a roster or as a team. Maybe you can still get results, but maybe you don't. And if you don't, obviously that impacts your standings. So I get the sentiment from Don Cavecito, especially with how we said how thin Inter Miami is at the center back position right now, especially with Ryan Shawcross and Ventura Alvarado still nursing injuries. To answer Don Cavecito's question directly, do I think the Venezuelan national team will call him up soon? I would say no, not yet. I could see him maybe getting called up in November if he sustains this level for a bit longer. I don't know if October. I think maybe he needs to sustain this level a little bit longer. But by November, especially with how Venezuela is doing in World Cup qualifying in South America, if they don't get that many points in 3 games, maybe the Venezuelan national team throws the towel on this campaign, this qualifying campaign, and says, all right, let's start planning for the future. Let's start building for the future. Let's give some young guys that we have in the pipeline some opportunities. Let's see them train up close and personal. So I think in November, maybe he could get the call. I think October is a bit too soon, not only because I think he still has to show more of these type of games and these type of performances, but I also think Venezuela is still in the mix somewhat, although their hopes are quickly fading. But I think they're going to try to make one final push, and if they can't, then maybe they switch gears and start bringing in some younger players like Makun. Next question, and it'll be our last question, comes from Roberto Rivadeneira. Let's talk about Carranza. I haven't seen him score a goal. Maybe I'm wrong. Do you think they should try to pair him with Higuain to see if they have a good combination? I know Jose likes talking about Julian Carranza. I think Jose rates Julian Carranza higher than I do. So, Jose, I will give you the floor unless you want me to go first.
No, I can take this one. Listen, I just want Julian Carranza to have an opportunity. I don't know what he's going to do because I haven't seen much from him. And we actually saw them play together, Pipita and Juli over the weekend, but they were together for basically not even 20 minutes because I think Juli came on at the 70th and Pipita left just a few minutes after that. But I don't know if they're going to be great together. But I think Juli Carranza deserves an opportunity. I think, there must be a reason why Inter Miami decided to sign him so early on. And so I think he deserves an opportunity. Hopefully he'll get it soon. I think tomorrow could be an important night for him. And, it's also a matter of when he's on the field, you have to make an impact to make Phil Neville think twice about bringing you in, and you have to learn that you have to adjust if you want to get opportunities, right? Look at Robbie Robinson. Robbie Robinson came in and he was basically a 9, and he had to adjust and move to one of the wings. Well, maybe at some point Juli Carranza will have to take on that challenge.
So I think we have seen Higuain and Carranza play side by side, not just this past weekend, but in other occasions, although it hasn't been very consistent the times that we've seen them play together. I think, again, he'll get his opportunity on Tuesday night versus Toronto FC. As for whether he scored a goal or not, he has not scored one this season. He scored one in the expansion year in 2020. He had 2 goals in the same game against Orlando City, that first game at Drive Pink Stadium after the MLS's back tournament. He scored 2 good goals in that one, but since then, just big dry spell for him, and he's never really gotten going. Do I think they should try pairing him with Higuain? I mean, for me, I don't think that's going to necessarily work. I think if you put in 2 strikers, that takes away from the defensive part of the team because you have 2 players in more advanced positions. So I don't think that they should pair them. I think they should stick with what's worked, but Carranza needs to make the most of the opportunities he's given, which should come, at least one should come this week. So let's leave it there for the Q&A session. Jose, let's give our final thoughts. We'll start with yours. I'll give mine, and we'll wrap up the show after that.
I think for this week, my final thought, it's, I want to mention...
Is it on PlayStation 5? Because I know you're looking for one.
Yeah, I'm still looking for a PlayStation 5, by the way. So if anybody has one laying around someplace in South Florida, please let me know. All right, let's... that's good, Franco. Thank you.
That might be your nickname. That might be your nickname, PS5 Jose.
Edison Ascona. Hopefully, whether it's tomorrow or whether it's on Friday, I cannot wait to see this young kid play. He's exciting to watch, and he's the one player for the future that Miami has on the roster right now. And with everything that is going to happen when it comes to budget and restrictions for the next few years, Edison Ascona deserves an opportunity. He'll get it, and hopefully he stays here for a while because I think he has the talent in a few years to go to the higher level possible.
The hype train is real. The Ascona hype train is leaving the station, and Jose is the conductor. Wow, I did not expect that one as your final thought. My final thought will be on something we didn't touch on in the first segment that happened this weekend, but I had to touch on it, of course. And that's the run-in that Phil Neville had with Caleb Porter, or their animated exchange after the game. They had they had an exchange of words, and then after the game, Phil Neville was asked about it. He kind of reluctantly gave a response. He didn't want to give up a whole lot at first, but eventually does, and he says that he felt that Caleb Porter broke the code of conduct between coaches and accused all the referees of wearing Phil Neville shirts, etc., etc. I mean, look, when Phil Neville said it, I'm not going to lie, in the press conference, as he was saying it, I chuckled quietly, because anyone that's been around MLS for a long time knows that that's Caleb Porter's personality, by and large, that he does get his feathers ruffled, and he does have that chip on his shoulder. Phil Neville also took responsibility afterwards for maybe his response or his reaction, and said that maybe that he could have handled it better. Paraphrasing there, he didn't use those exact words, but it was a good bit of personality there between the two coaches who had a little bit of a war of words. The two teams will play again later this season, so something to keep an eye on. I imagine that they'll play nice, and that they'll get, cooler heads will prevail when they do, but maybe they won't. So keep an eye on that when the Columbus Crew and Inter Miami play in Columbus, Ohio later this year. But that does it for this week's show. Thank you guys again so much for listening. Please don't forget to give us a follow on all our social media channels and leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. We'll be back again later this week. Just because they're short turnarounds does not mean we're not going to give you guys the shows you're looking for. So we'll be back later this week to recap this game against Toronto FC and preview the following match on Friday night against the New York Red Bulls. For Jose Armando, I am Franco Panizo. This is Miami Total Football Radio. And we'll talk to you guys again very, very